Let's be honest with ourselves. At 50, the only thing expanding faster than our investment portfolio is usually our waistline. We like to call it wisdom, but the mirror calls it a spare tire. Most of us try to handle this expansion in one of two ways. We either squeeze into the slim-fit shirts of our 30s, looking like a sausage about to burst, or we hide inside oversized sacks, hoping no one notices we've arrived 10 minutes after our clothes did. Today, we're going to stop this struggle. We aren't going to talk about the gym, and surprisingly, we aren't even going to mention the blazer. Instead, we're going to borrow a few secrets from the master tailors of Savile Row. These men aren't just tailors, they're engineers of the human chassis.
We're going to talk about how to use gravity, the weight of the cloth, and a bit of mechanical camouflage to redefine your silhouette. If you want to look 10 kilos lighter without giving up your Saturday pint or your Sunday roast, you just need to understand how your clothes should actually interact with your body. It's time to stop fighting your clothes and start making them work for you. Let's get into it.
Let's start with the most common weapon in your wardrobe, which, for a man with a bit of a midsection, is actually a traitor: the leather belt. We've been conditioned to think a belt is a tool of order, but from an engineering standpoint, it's a failure. Think about the physics for a moment. A belt is a ring. Your belly, as it expands after 50, is a dome. Now, what happens when you put a ring on a dome? Gravity takes over. The ring slides down to the narrowest point, which is inevitably under the belly. This creates what I call the great visual shelf. By tightening that belt under your gut, you are essentially drawing a bright horizontal line right across the widest part of your frame. You're telling the world, look right here, this is where my discipline ends and my Sunday roasts begin. When you wear your trousers under your belly, you commit a crime against your own proportions. You shorten your legs by 10 centimeters and lengthen your torso, making your body look heavy and unbalanced. It's a constant battle. You're forever hiking your trousers up in public, a gesture that screams, "I'm struggling with my own clothes." And let's be honest, there is nothing less authoritative than a man fighting a losing battle with his waistband. The master tailors of Savile Row solved this 200 years ago with the suspension strategy. They understood that to handle a large midsection, you don't squeeze it, you frame it. The first step is a psychological one. Move your trousers up. Your trousers should sit at your natural waist, which is right across the navel. This is the widest point, yes, but it's also the most stable anchor point for the silhouette. Now, how do we keep them there? We use braces, or as the Americans call them, suspenders. And please, forget the image of your grandfather and his eccentric elastic bands. From a mechanical perspective, braces are a masterpiece. Instead of a belt acting like a tourniquet that cuts you in half, braces allow your trousers to hang from the shoulders. Think of it as the curtain principle. When a curtain hangs from a rod, it falls in a clean, straight, vertical line.
It doesn't matter if there's a radiator, a chair, or a bit of accumulated wisdom behind that curtain. The eye only sees the smooth, flat plane of the fabric. By hanging your trousers, the cloth skims over the belly instead of clinging to it. You create an unbroken vertical line from your chest down to your shoes. You don't just look thinner, you look taller, more composed, and infinitely more powerful. You aren't hiding behind your clothes. You are using the internal architecture of the garment to reclaim your dignity. And for the love of all that is holy, ensure they are button-on braces, never clips. Clips are for toddlers. Buttons are for men who understand the details.
Now that we've fixed the foundation with the suspension strategy, let's talk about your outer layer. Most men over 50 make the fatal mistake of choosing fabrics that are too thin. They buy lightweight linen or flimsy cotton shirts, thinking they'll look breezy. In reality, those fabrics are like a treacherous ex-partner. They cling to every secret you're trying to hide. They highlight every ripple of the midsection and every extra serving of dessert you've enjoyed over the last decade. The Savile Row alternative? The structured shell. We are going to replace the formal blazer with two powerhouse garments: the overshirt, often called a shacket, and the safari jacket. The secret here is mechanical stiffness. You want fabrics with guts, such as heavy twill, denim, or high-weight linen. These materials don't drape, they stand. When you wear a heavy-duty overshirt, it acts as a structural chassis for your torso. Instead of following the curve of your belly, the fabric creates its own straight vertical line from your shoulder down to your hip. It turns your round profile into a square one. It's an optical illusion that signals a much more disciplined physique than the mirror might suggest. Now let's talk about the art of diversion, pocket placement. This is where the safari jacket becomes a masterpiece of engineering. A classic safari jacket has 4 prominent pockets. From an aesthetic standpoint, they look rugged and adventurous. From a belly-hiding standpoint, they are a genius tactical distraction. By placing 2 large pockets on the chest and 2 on the hips, you draw the eye away from the center. You are creating 4 points of interest that frame the torso, making the midsection between them look like a flat, neutral plane. It's the same principle as a camouflage wrap on a prototype car, where you're breaking up the surface so the eye can't track the true volume. And a pro tip for the active gentleman: the 2-button rule. When wearing a structured overshirt or a safari jacket, never button it all the way to the bottom. Leave the last 1 or 2 buttons open. This creates an inverted V shape at the hem, which allows the fabric to flare slightly over the hips. Not only does this provide comfort when you sit down, avoiding that awkward, bulging button look, but it also tricks the eye into seeing a narrower waist by comparison. You aren't just a man in a jacket, you are a man who understands the physics of his own presence. You look like you've just returned from a vintage car rally in Tuscany, rather than a man trying to hide his lunch. As we move into the cooler months, or even just a breezy evening by the coast, most men with a midsection retreat into thin, flimsy jumpers. This is a tactical disaster. A thin merino sweater is essentially a second skin. It highlights every roll, every ripple, and exactly where your belt starts and ends. It doesn't hide the belly, it gift wraps it. The Savile Row solution for a relaxed but authoritative look? The heavy gauge shawl collar cardigan. Think of this not as a grandpa sweater, but as soft architecture. The secret lies in the shawl collar itself. This thick, rolled collar does 2 vital things for your silhouette. First, it adds significant visual bulk to your neck and shoulders. In the world of proportions, if your shoulders and chest look broader, your waist instinctively looks narrower by comparison. It's an optical win before you've even buttoned a single button. Secondly, the shawl collar creates a deep, vertical V shape that draws the eye upward toward your face. Instead of the eye settling on the widest part of your torso, it follows the line of the collar. It's a classic diversion tactic used by the world's best tailors to elongate the frame. Now, let's talk about the weight. You need what we call chunky or heavy gauge knit, such as fisherman ribs or cable knits. Why? Because a heavy knit has its own structural integrity. It doesn't cling to your stomach. It stands independently of it. It acts like a soft shield, smoothing out the profile of your torso. And here is the professional cardigan trick: the mid-button strategy. Never button the top button and never button the bottom one. You only want to secure the middle 1 or 2, right at the narrowest point of your torso, or where you want people to think the narrowest point is. This creates an X shape that narrows the waist and flares slightly at the hips, providing comfort while you're sitting in your classic car or enjoying a steak dinner. You don't look like a man trying to hide his age. You look like a man who has mastered the art of comfortable power. Now let's talk about the layer that sits closest to the problem area, the shirt. Most men over 50 make a common, almost tragic mistake here. They choose fabrics that are too thin. They buy fine, expensive poplin or silk blend shirts, thinking they look refined. In reality, on a man with a belly, a thin shirt is like a wet paper towel draped over a football. It clings to every curve, it highlights every shadow, and it vibrates with every movement of your midsection. It doesn't dress you, it betrays you. The Savile Row secret? The heavyweight Oxford cloth button-down. You need a fabric with architectural memory. A heavy-gauge Oxford cloth is thick, rugged, and has a stiff weave. It doesn't follow the contours of your stomach. It creates its own. When you tuck a heavy Oxford shirt into high-rise trousers, the fabric stands away from the skin, acting as a structural buffer. It smooths out the transitions between your chest and your waist, giving you a clean, flat front. It's the difference between looking like a man in a state of unraveling and a man who is contained. But the real magic happens when we talk about the monochrome flow. Imagine your body as a landscape. When you wear a white shirt tucked into dark trousers, you are creating a horizon line exactly where your belly is widest. You're essentially putting a neon sign on your midsection that says, "Look at the contrast right here." It's a visual stop sign for the eye. To delete the belly, you need to remove the horizon. Wear a navy shirt with navy trousers. Wear a charcoal overshirt with charcoal chinos. When you dress in a single, dark tonal column, the eye doesn't get stuck on the waist. It flows vertically from your head to your shoes. You become a tall, imposing pillar of color rather than two separate halves struggling to stay together. And for a bit of mature flair, roll your sleeves up to the forearm and leave the top two buttons open. This draws attention to your arms and your face, your points of strength, and away from the center. You look like a man who is ready for action, whether that's checking the oil in your Jaguar or ordering another round of espresso at a cafe in Milan. You aren't hiding, you're simply dominating the space you occupy. We have fixed the waist, built the shell, and mastered the colors. But there is one final technical error that can ruin everything: the lollipop effect. This happens when a man with a substantial midsection wears shoes that are too slim, too pointy, or too thin. When your footwear lacks weight, your torso looks twice as large by comparison. You look like you are balancing a heavy load on two toothpicks. It is a failure of proportions. To ground your silhouette, you need substantial footwear. Think of these as the wheels and tires of a classic Land Rover. They need to look like they can support the weight of the machine. Avoid the flimsy, thin-soled loafers. Instead, look for chunky derbies, brogues with a commando sole, or heavy-duty Chelsea boots. A thicker sole provides a visual anchor at the bottom of your frame. It balances the volume of your torso and creates a much more symmetrical, powerful profile. When your foundation looks solid, your midsection instinctively looks like part of a powerful whole rather than an isolated problem. Finally, let us talk about the watch. As a man of experience, your watch is not just for telling time, it is a counterweight. If you have a larger frame, a tiny, thin dress watch will look lost on your wrist, making your hand and arm look disproportionately large. You need a piece with presence. A substantial diver's watch or a classic chronograph provides a point of visual interest that balances the scale of your body. It is a detail that signals authority and attention to the mechanics of style. Gentlemen, let us wrap this up. Winning the battle against the midsection expansion is not about dieting until you are miserable, and it certainly is not about hiding behind a blazer every time you leave the house. It is about engineering. It is about understanding that your clothes are tools designed to work for you, not against you. By moving your trousers to your natural waist, hanging them from your shoulders, choosing fabrics with structural integrity, and grounding yourself with the right footwear, you are not just covering up. You are reclaiming your silhouette. You are showing the world that even if the years have added a bit of accumulated wisdom to your frame, you have not lost an ounce of your discipline. Style at 50 is a statement of intent. It says you are still the master of your own narrative. So go to your wardrobe, lose the belt, find your natural waist, and start constructing a presence that commands respect without saying a single word. If these engineering rules helped you today, subscribe to Mature Elegance. We do not do trends here. We do timeless authority. Leave a comment below and tell me, which of these tactics are you going to try first? I will see you in the next one. Stay sharp, stay disciplined, and, as always, keep the lines clean.